everyone, this is Rachel. Thanks for clicking on my video. And I came in today to see if you guys had heard that there's going to be a new Scarface. Now, I had no idea that they were thinking about remaking this movie. The writer of this new movie is a guy by the name of Jonathan Herman, and the director is Antoine Fuqua. And then they have a guy by the name of Terrence Winter who is going to put the gangster in the new movie. He's known for Straight Outta Compton, Wolf of Wall Street, and The Sopranos, and I guess he's an expert at this. So what do you think? Do you think that they could do Scarface Justice? And the reason why I asked that is I saw Scarface when it first came out in 1983. I was 18 years old, and I must say that when it came out, Scarface hit us like a ton of bricks. We had never seen a gangster like Tony Montana. You know, they had Al Pacino playing that leading role, and anyone who's ever seen Al Pacino play a gangster knows that he plays one of the best gangsters. And one thing I noticed right away when I first saw this movie is right in the beginning, they made you like Tony. When they showed Tony in his home country, he and his friend Manny, you know, they let you get to know them. And I think they did that for a deliberate reason. Because the movie was going to go to a dark place, they wanted you to have this conflict with Tony and Manny. And the conflict was, even though they were criminals, because you had saw this friendship between them, and them leaving Cuba and going to the United States to pursue that quote unquote American dream, it made you grow to like them. Now, Tony and Manny were two criminals, so their idea of the American dream was a little different from what everyone else's might be. So when they got to America, their thing was, they were going to be drug dealers. Now for Tony, that meant rising to the top of the drug game and taking out anyone who got in his way. Now, they said that this new movie is going to be set in California, and that the main character is going to be a Mexican immigrant. And they said that that will mirror, what's going on in today's world. Now, here's where I start to have a little problem with the new movie. I don't want them to take away from the original story. Now, in the original story, even though Tony and Manny were criminals, like I said, they made you like them. So all during the movie, you find yourself rooting for them as they move up in the drug game. But in the back of your mind, you realize you're rooting for some drug lords who are killing people left and right. And that conflict follows you all the way throughout the movie. Now, in today's world where we're trying to do everything bigger and better than it was done before, I just hope they don't go too far. Meaning that, they don't make the violence so much that you lose that Tony did have 1 ounce of humanity, and that humanity was his sister. Now, everyone else that Tony came into contact with, he was violent with. But with his sister, the one good thing that he had in his life, he wanted her to be okay. Even though the things that he did, like giving her money and, buying her a business and all of that, ultimately led to her going down just as he did. But you knew just from watching how he reacted when Manny even mentioned his sister, you knew for Tony that that was the one good thing left in his life. So with this new movie, you want them to keep that element in there. You don't want them to make this new, Tony in the 2016-17 version almost like a superhero. Or, they add this like rap music element and, this whole kind of, like a thuggish drug lord, because Tony was a killer, but Tony was the type of drug lord who was big time, not the drug dealer standing on the corner. Tony was actually a drug lord. So there was a whole different element. And then as the movie moves on, you see Tony grow. Tony gets to the point where he's taking money to banks and he's giving them so much money that they can no longer launder it for him, because they can't think of any other ways to hide that money. So with this new movie, they're going to have to get up and go, because in the 1983 version with Al Pacino, every relationship that he had in that movie was very complex. It wasn't all about just the drugs and the money. It was about the man, and that man was Tony, and Tony's desire to rise up but try to keep some shred of humanity about him, which was his sister. It was just it was a very good movie, and you just hope that with this new movie they do it justice. Now, I think that them using the main character now, or making the main character now a Mexican immigrant, is apropos for what's going on in the world now. Because back in the 80s, we were dealing with and having problems with Cuba. So having Tony be a Cuban immigrant for the 80s was correct. But in today's world, Mexico would be the logical logical place if you're thinking of it and on those terms. So if they take the story and they stick to all that the 1983 version of Scarface was, then they could make this a very good movie if they just don't take it too far. Because sometimes nowadays they have a tendency to take a story and do too much to it, to the point where you don't even, have any semblance of the original movie. Also, they're going to have to be very careful with who they choose to play Tony. Because as I said, Al Pacino is one of the greatest gangster players in Hollywood. So this person that they get to play Tony Montana now is going to have to be really good. He's going to have that thing in him that can pull out, showing the ruthless side of Tony, but also showing the tender side when it came to his sister. And even when he had the relationship with his wife in the beginning, he really was digging her. But, him rising up and, becoming more and more of the drug lord, it actually took her down too, because Tony had all these drugs and, she dabbled a little bit when she was with Frank, but when she was with Tony, she went on to the other side, to actually becoming addicted. Because of the excesses of Tony's life, it made her life, really terrible too. And then I just look forward to this new movie. Hopefully they do a good job with it, and inevitably I will be comparing it to the 1983 version. You can't help but do it if you have seen that original movie. And I don't know if any of you who are listening have not seen it, but Scarface is a movie that's worth watching. It is very violent, but again, I don't know, in today's world, it may not be violent to you guys, but for us, back in 83, it really was. But if you haven't seen it, you might want to see this one so you can compare it to the one that's gonna, come out when Antoine Fuqua is done with his movie. Well, folks, that's all I wanted to let you know. And as always, thanks for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.